see if I can find a good visual representation of this.
Cheers. If you do that, I'll just make a quick thumbnail. Just snick it. All right, guys. I guess we can move on from that question. Let's do question 4. And again, we'll see if we can bring localization back into our discussions a bit more. All right, question 4, people. How well do you think the newly introduced Pokemon will integrate into the game's storyline or with the game's storyline or narrative? Do you expect any differences in their involvement or significance within the story between the Japanese and Western versions? So this, again, we started this whole thing talking about who are these Pokemon? They look like the new gangs in town and so on. That there, like I said, I'd love to see that in the anime personally. I'm an anime Pokemon. I love everything about Pokemon, the clothes, the food, the anime, the everything. So I just would love to see how this is explored. So let's start with, okay, Professor Suzuka, get your answer ready. I think we'll start with Dan again. Dan, do you have anything for us?
Sure. So I'm interested in seeing how they will fit in, but the s- localization between the English and the Japanese in the older Pokemon was very different. Characters would say very different things because the localization was a smaller team. It wasn't as organized. The Pokemon wasn't as popular.
Mm,
When it became a massive sensation, when everyone was playing Pokemon, it was important that there were as few differences as possible.
mm,
So the names are different. That's understood. We know the Japanese names and the English names, they're different. But later games have been very, very similar in the story. The story in Japanese and the story in English is very similar. There's not much difference. They've tried to make them as close as possible.
mm.
That said, in the game, it's the small characters. It's the guy you talk to. What they're saying, that can be a little bit more different because the heritage, the lore around certain things can draw on different opinions. So I'm interested not in the differences in the story because honestly, I don't think there'll be that many big ones. But I want to know what the side characters, the NPCs, are saying. They're
Yeah.
going to say some fun things, and it's going to
This
be.
is yeah, this is interesting what you're saying. The very nature of the localization was impacted by how popular Pokemon became, and thus now, in fact, the localization is not just about English and Japanese. It's about even other countries. You have to consider the cultural sensitivities of um, various languages, and
Mm.
yeah, and therefore, when it comes to these characters in particular, or these new Pokemon, well, one thing that can make it a bit easier to make consistent is that it's all based in Japan right now, right? So because this is a Japanese themed character, a set of characters we're dealing with, it's easier to explain Japan to many countries rather than to try and uh, find something that is foreign to Japan and for Japan to try and understand that and then explain that to the world. So,
Mm.
yeah, so
Maybe there's going to be in some references that the rest of the world won't get. Like I got the Yakuza references, but the Momotaro ones.
yeah, that's quite new to me. I really want to hear. All right, Professor Suzuka, what do you got to add to this?
So, download content story, so new story, I think it will be based on Japanese folklore. So, Japanese people know so these stories, but other countries people, the players don't know uh, this. So the staff who um, who localized the
Mm,
Pokemons. So is is it easy to know the Japanese culture and understand? So the final goal is so other countries players are interested in Japanese culture.
Mm.
So I hope the
That's a
yes.
good point. Yeah. I wonder, can you give me for example, I was wondering if we can get something specific to do with storylines, guys. Now, I understand what we're talking about when it comes to this general topics like Japanese culture, gangs, and so on. But I wonder if, like now I understand both of us, no, all of us, we're familiar more with the game than the anime. Although with me, I don't know, 50-50. But I don't know. Do you have an example of a DLC character impacting the storyline? Dan, do you have any memories of such?
Yes, but not in Pokemon.
Okay.
In Pokemon, mostly because early Pokemon didn't have DLC. They had the third game.
Yes, let's make a new game.
So in the first generation, we had Pokemon. Well, in Japan, it was green and red, and in England, it was blue and red.
Yes.
The third game was Pokemon Yellow,
Mm.
which was just an anime version. It had Jesse and James and Meowth in it,
Yeah.
and you could catch the starters in the game because your first Pokemon was Pikachu.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, games usually had one and the two, and the third game would be kind of a DLC. It would have the story of the first two and then added story on after that, a DLC extra. But the way we play has changed. We don't buy a separate game now. We just download it. It's literally downloadable content. So each of these DLCs are just a self-contained story. The only influence they have on the wider scope would be the Pokemon in the region, would be the influencing the meta. They are kind of like an extra chapter. But once you finish it, it's kind of done.
So I see. So these DLCs are standalone, isolated worlds.
Well, yeah, I mean, the last game in Sword and Shield, the Isle of Armor and I'm gonna get raked over a coals by the viewers.
No worries.
The Crown Tundra, that's the one. Yeah, they had a story. You went in, you met people, you had challenges, but it was completed within that space. The story didn't spill out over onto the main game. It was one and done within that area. And I think that's what they're going to do now, is that when you download it, you're going to go to Japan, go to the festival, see the area, fight the Yakuza, take on Momotaro, boom. The story is concluded in that area.
Yeah.
I got it. Professor Suzuka, did you follow that? Like, you don't. So because we're saying that the DLC is like a separate extra adventure. Did you find in Sword and Shield that experience?
So Sword and Shield DLC, it's two stories. The first one, the fight bear, a cub is cub Pokemons and grow up. So like karate.
Right.
Yes. And other story is so legends.
I believe so. Is that
Yes.
true then?
So village legends, and so the legend Pokemons get. So
this is sorry to interrupt. Dan, what was the name of the island that you said was an isolated part in Sword and Shield?
Yeah, the Isle of Armor.
Oh, image, you know, upload it.
Found it. Right, this is a classic update. So you had the Pokemon Sword and Shield, and then you got an expansion pass, and you did this, and you traveled to the Isle of Armor, with a story where you had to raise a bear. You got a bear, a young Pokemon from the local gym, and you had to train it up and evolve it into one of two forms, and that was the story. It was which form do you want to take, and then you fight the local bully, and then you went to the Crown Tundra. Got it. And this is an area full of legendaries, so you had to go to the village and help them out with all these the secret, the mysteries of the legendary Pokemon. And it was really popular because it introduced a bunch of legendary Pokemon back into the game. You know, classic ones and new versions. They had different versions of the birds.
I see. I see. So these are separate stories, right? They don't really change the. Yeah. So Professor Suzuka, you see. So this story doesn't affect the narrative of overall Pokemon. Yes. Thanks. Thank you, guys. Actually, you've made things clearer for me also. Yeah.
Yes, you could say it influences it because if you play the DLCs and you catch a bunch of new Pokemon and then you restart the game, you could have a bunch of crazy powerful Pokemon early in the main game.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I play through the game once and then I like, okay, I know the story, I know the Pokemon. What is my team? I build a team, I breed them, I breed like Pokemon with good stats, put them in the Pokemon bank, start a new game. I've got a brand new team.
That's another way to make a new storyline, I suppose. There you go. This is interesting. All right, guys. I think we'll have to finish our question for today. Wait, hold on.